What's up, YouTube? This is Slide 8 Fry here. So this next video is longer, so I'm not including the intro this time. I know the last time I reacted to Video Game Historian, I didn't get very many views, but I couldn't resist this one, and it just came out, so maybe there's a chance with this one. Let's check it out. It's about LJN's Roland Rocker, and I automatically am thinking about when AVGN was reviewing NES accessories and he got to the segment where he talked about the Roland Rocker. He said, "I'm drinking Roland Rock on the Roland Rocker." Well, anyways, let's watch this video. Try to get through it pretty quickly.
At the 1989 Winter Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, the hottest new trend in the gaming industry was controllers.
Of course.
Acclaim debuted wireless NES gamepads. Mattel showed off the Power Glove, an early form of virtual reality.
Didn't work very well.
Bruderbund went a step further with the U-Force.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt here. AVGN on his NES accessories episode liked the U-Force. But James Rolfe seems to actually not remember much from his own videos, though, because in later videos, when he references the U-Force, he references it with anger. But I recall when he, in the NES accessories episode, AVGN liked the U-Force. So what's with him, you know, showing anger towards it when it's referenced in later episodes? Anyways, moving on.
Which let players control a game without touching anything. And then there was LJN's Roland Rocker. The Roland Rocker allowed players to control games by rocking back and forth on a plastic board.
Why?
It was awkward to use and wasn't exactly fun. The Roland Rocker was more of a novelty than an actual controller, and it quickly faded into obscurity. Let's learn more about this quirky device, how it worked, and why it existed in the first place.
Yeah.
But before we begin, I'd like to thank Warby Parker for sponsoring today's video.
I'm gonna have to skip
When
ahead.
I found out that Warby Parker blue light lenses are all ships free and include favorites, the Vaughns was definitely ready to use the Roland Rocker. Try 5 pairs of glasses at home for free at warbyparker.com.
And I hope I never will.
LJN Toys first got involved in the video game industry in 1987. A subsidiary of MCA Universal, LJN specialized in licensed toys like WWF action figures and toy guns like Entertech and Gotcha. But LJN jumped into the video game industry thanks to the meteoric rise in popularity of the Nintendo Entertainment System. In the summer of 1987, LJN became an official Nintendo licensee and published games under the Interactive label. Just like their toys, LJN focused on licensed products. Their first titles were Jaws, The Karate Kid, Major League Baseball, TNC Surf Designs, and Gotcha. The video game business proved to be very lucrative for LJN. In fact, it was helping keep the company afloat.
That's despite their games being terrible. It's because they kept being the ones that did movie licenses and sports. As a result, people wanted to buy them because it was based off of a cool movie, but the game sucked. Speaking of which, Jaws, on the other hand, I don't get me wrong, I've watched AVGN review the Steven Spielberg games many times. That Jaws game, actually, that one in particular doesn't actually look that bad. It just looks like it's just kind of repetitive.
Their Gotcha toy gun line, which shot harmless liquid dye pellets, was a disaster.
Really?
People complained the guns jammed or the bullets didn't shoot far enough.
Oh, that's
LJN
terrible.
ceased production, but still had to eat $35 million worth of returns.
That's horrible.
But
that's
thanks to their video games, LJN stayed profitable.
Lucky.
Unfortunately, working with Nintendo had limits.
Of course
As a licensee, LJN had to follow strict rules and regulations. They were only allowed to produce 5 games a year, which had to remain exclusive on the NES for 2 years. To keep the profits flowing...
Well, you should only really produce 1 game a year, because 5 games a year, it's like... you're going to have a really massive staff, and you're going to split focus, so 5 games a year is pretty lenient, I say.
LJN turned to making NES accessories. At the 1988 Summer Consumer Electronics Show, LJN unveiled their newest product.
I recognize the artist of that song he's listening to, but I have never heard that song in particular.
The Roland Rocker. By rocking back and forth on a stand-on board, players could control their games. LJN promised it would transform your normal reflex movements into high-speed, on-screen video action. But the public wasn't impressed. Journalist Phil Vettel tested out the Roland Rocker at the 1989 Toy Fair in New York and called it something of a cross between a pogo ball and a boogie board. What? He also noted it was very easy, for me at least, to fall off the Roland Rocker.
I bet.
Computer Play magazine gave the Roland Rocker the Weirdest Award in their coverage of the 1989 Winter Consumer Electronics Show.
That's awesome.
Besides the awkward balancing act, players still had to use a regular controller for the start, select, and A and B buttons.
So what was the point?
If you had to hold a controller anyway, what was the point? Despite the criticism, LJN pressed forward. And in the spring of 1989, they released the Roland Rocker to stores nationwide. It retailed for $39.99, which was about the cost of a new NES game.
That's a rip-off.
So how does the Roland Rocker work? There's not much to it. 95% of the Roland Rocker is plastic. But let's take a look inside.
Okay.
By taking off 3 screws in the back, we can detach this blue faceplate, which houses the electronics.
Okay.
On the board is a 4-way tilt switch. A tilt switch uses a small cylinder with either a metal ball or liquid mercury.
Okay.
When you tilt it, the ball or mercury inside moves and makes contact with the metal electrodes at the end, which sends a signal. So when you lean forward on the Roland Rocker, it's like pressing up on the D-pad. Or when you lean to the right, it's like pressing right on the D-pad.
Okay.
Companies used tilt switches on many early motion control devices.
Okay.
And they aren't the most accurate or responsive.
Clearly, yeah.
Using the Roland Rocker is pretty straightforward. First, you plug it into the NES controller port. Next, plug a regular controller into the port on the front of the Roland Rocker.
All right.
The bottom of the device has a half sphere that allows you to pivot in different directions. The easiest way to hop on is to step on one side, then put your other foot on to balance out. Now you are ready for some radical gaming. So how well does the Roland Rocker work?
That's awesome.
Does it allow for high-speed video gaming action? Let's test it out with a few games, starting with a classic, Super Mario Bros.
Works.
Using the Roland Rocker really alters the way you play this game. Changing directions or stopping is difficult. Even going down a pipe is quite a task. It's best to lean to the right and play the game like an endless runner. How about a sports game? Let's try LJN's very own Major League Baseball. The first obstacle is picking your lineup, which the game requires you to do. It's exhausting. You know, it's interesting how using the Roland Rocker makes you realize how much you use the D-pad in certain games. Everything utilizes directional movement, pitching, fielding, batting, and base running. Fielding the ball is by far the hardest. If you are off by even 1 pixel, your player won't pick up the ball.
Oh my God.
I gave up a lot of inside-the-park home runs. Major League Baseball is a terrible game to use with the Roland Rocker. Now...
So, I remember back in high school, which is going way back, 2007 is when I graduated, there was this really attractive girl there who I got along with but didn't go out with me when I asked. Anyways, that doesn't matter. I'm married and I'm happy with my wife. But anyways, she told me that she bunted a home run. She bunted and got an inside the park home run. That's... if that happened in a Major League Baseball game, that would be off the hook. I don't think that's ever happened before, though. Pretty hilarious. And when it comes to baseball, I really wish on the Switch Online service, the NES one, I wish they'd have bases loaded. I mostly played at Super Nintendo back in the 90s, but I played a little bit of NES, and I recall actually enjoying bases loaded. But the MLB game, nah, not so much. Wish they'd have bases loaded on there instead. And they have ice hockey on there. That game sucks too. Blades of Steel, though, that's a good hockey game. I wish they had that. I played that on the Game Boy, and so much fun, and there's an NES version. All right, moving on.
Here's a game that only uses the D-pad, Marble Madness.
Uh-oh.
I honestly thought this would be a perfect game to show off the Roland Rocker.
It's going to be terrible.
I guess I forgot how much precision is needed to finish levels. The tutorial stage was fine, but I didn't get far after that. The second stage has this very narrow ramp that is almost impossible to get through using the Roland Rocker.
Jeez,
Let's try a racing game. Excite Bike. The Roland Rocker worked okay, since Excite Bike doesn't require too many quick reflexes.
That's true.
On Selection A, you have the whole track to yourself, so there aren't many obstacles.
Yeah.
But on Selection B, the difficulty cranks up considerably. I was running into other racers all the time.
That sucks.
Since we're using an LJN controller, let's finish our test with a classic LJN game, TNC Surf Designs. This game has two modes, skateboarding and surfing.
Okay.
In skateboarding, the goal is to dodge obstacles and race to the finish.
All right.
You need to speed up to finish the level, but that means dodging and jumping require quick movement. And as you can imagine, this did not work well with the Roland Rocker. Surfing is brutal using a regular controller, so it's next to impossible with the Roland Rocker. Most of the time, you will struggle to keep the surfer on screen.
That sucks.
Now, somehow, I managed to finish the first round, but I'm chalking that up as a fluke. Fun fact, in their marketing, LJN recommended using 2 Roland Rockers.
No.
Because it gives 2-player competition a new kind of thrill.
No.
Unfortunately, I don't own 2 Roland Rockers to confirm this claim, but I highly doubt it. The Roland Rocker received little to no fanfare.
Obviously.
It didn't have a memorable commercial like the U-Force, or a starring role in a Hollywood movie like The Power Glove.
Yeah.
By the end of 1989, stores sold the Roland Rocker at a discount. And a year later, you could pick one up for $10.
Wow.
In 1990, MCA Universal gave up on LJN and sold the company to Acclaim Entertainment for about $22 million.
So that's what happened.
Acclaim sold the toy lines and made LJN exclusively a video game publisher, which allowed Acclaim to get around Nintendo's 5-game per year licensee rule. To be fair, the Roland Rocker does work. It's just not a great way to play video games. Most games require quick reflexes, and a good controller enables fast reactions. The Roland Rocker can't do it.
No, it cannot.
But consider the creator. LJN was a toy company. That's an important context.
Okay.
The Roland Rocker is not a serious controller that will change the way you play video games. It's just a toy.
Exactly.
And not a very fun one. That's all for this episode of The Gaming Historian. Thanks for watching.
Funding for Gaming Historian is provided in part by supporters on Patreon. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun to watch. I'm actually surprised it took this long for him to talk about the Roland Rocker, but that's cool that he did. I had a blast. It was kind of awkward that people were walking by and bicycling by. I think next time I try to record or react at this park, I got to find a better spot. This didn't happen when I record my react to Jonathan Pye, but then again, the video was way shorter. I do assure you, I will try to have more react videos at home. It's just there's only one way I can do it. My wife has to not be home, so I have to be in our room there by myself, because with my wife, unless she wants to join me in the react, we're just going to spend some time together, which is more important. And I was considering doing this in the kitchen, but I also thought about the fact that there's a dog there that barks at literally everything, so as soon as I start talking, it's going to start barking, and it's just going to be a pain in the ass. Anyways, that'll do it for this React video. Check out my other React video to Gaming Historian. It was my first React video of the new year 2021. It was a React to Gaming Historian talking about an NES lock, an actual lock you put on your NES to prevent people from inserting cartridges. Obviously, it's some kind of parental control lock, but it's crazy. You gotta see that video. Anyways, that concludes my React to Gaming Historian about the Roland Rocker. Roland Rock on the Roland Rocker. Yeah! Can't help myself with that one. Obviously, ABGN does it better than me, but, you know. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, click on that bell icon to have notifications.